All right, Joel Klatt is with us. College football on Fox. You'll see him on the Big Ten Championship game. Ohio State, Indiana will play as
1 versus 2.
1-2. First time ever in the Big Ten Championship game. Klatt, is this your first 1-2 game you've ever called? Have you ever done another one?
That's a great question. I don't believe that I have.
Wow,
no,
good for you.
That Texas-Ohio State game was close, but I think this is the first one. Yeah.
All right, good. That'll be a fun game Saturday night. I mean, they're playing. They both may get a bye. They're playing for a trophy. They're playing for a trophy, Klatt. It's not like the SEC
trophy,
championship.
first seed. I
first
think
seed, big deal.
Seeding probably matters when you start looking at the weakness of what the 11 and 12 seed will be, and where everyone lines up. So we'll see. I mean, I think it should be pretty good. I think you've also got the Heisman on the line. I think winner wins the Heisman, Sayin or Mendoza.
Yeah. We want to ask you to do your official pick because you are on the game.
Yeah.
But
put the headgear on.
For people that, are just showing up at a Vegas sports book and they see the brands, they're going to be like, oh, this is very appealing. Ohio State only -5.5. But how tight are these teams when it comes to, overall talent? That sounds crazy when you look at an Ohio State roster. But just up front, how they match up. And, do you expect this to be a game that goes down to a final possession?
I do. I think that when I look at teams that don't have a ton of weaknesses around the country, these two stand out as complete, and they can play quality defense against the run and pass. They, on offense, can run the football and throw the football. So, they've got veterans where you need to. The talent discrepancy might be fairly vast, but only when it comes to past recruiting rankings. When you look at actually the way that they're playing, the way that NFL scouts look at these guys, Indiana has been able to develop some guys from 3-star players or JMU players into college football stars, and they've done a great job of that. This is one of the only teams that I can really see lining up with Ohio State and saying, okay, we can play with you. We are complete enough. We've got answers around the field, because that's what Ohio State possesses, is answers. It doesn't matter where you go, they can adjust, and they're probably better than you at that. That's, I think, the knock that I have against a lot of teams in the country this year, is that there is a glaring weakness or there's a glaring question about their team, whereas I don't feel like we have one with Ohio State. Maybe you could say they haven't faced adversity, maybe, I guess, or they haven't been taken into deep water, but that's also to their credit because they've controlled those games. We saw their quarterback have to deal with that with the interception early in the game last week, and he came back and played tremendous. And then this one question that maybe was nagging for people around the country about their run game, they lined up and had a 20-play drive, 16 of them runs for 11 and a half minutes against Michigan on the road in the snow. That's a pretty dang good answer, if you want to call it that. So this is a team that's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, and for me, winner or lose, if you win or lose this game, they should still be the 1 and 2 seed, in my opinion. There should be nothing on the line this weekend. I think they stay 1, they stay 2. SEC champion probably is 3 for me.
Okay.
And then we fill out the rest of them as we go.
I think it probably depends on the way the games go. Let's just say, sake of argument, and Tide fans, just relax for a second. But sake of argument, Georgia wins convincingly and Ohio State wins convincingly. I think you can make an argument Georgia would go to 2 and Indiana would fall back. So I do think that it matters how the games are played, or vice versa. If Indiana were to beat Ohio State convincingly, maybe Georgia were to pass the Buckeyes, but the style of the game might matter a little bit this Saturday.
Yeah, I'm interested in the big picture for you, because some of us believe, no, I shouldn't say some of us, there are some people that believe 4 teams was a good number, 8 teams would have been a better number, 12 teams. Some people want to go to 24. This is one of those years where we're going to actually leave out, relatively speaking, a couple of teams that may be deserving of being into a 12-team field this year.
Sure.
How do you like this at the end, and how do you like the fact that we're going to leave a few teams out when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think we talk about the wrong thing, to be honest with you. I think when we talk about expanding, that does not solve any problems. Expanding doesn't solve any problems. We actually create more. If you looked at the 4-team era, we would have arguments, and about 3 teams at most, you would say, man, they got legitimate argument for that spot, and one of them would get it and two were left out, and you like for instance, like 23 Georgia. It's like, dang, man, we left that team out. And it's like, we were just in a bind, I guess, because of Bama winning that game and Texas beating Bama earlier in the year, right? I think we could all agree with that. Now we have a 12-team playoff. So the scope of the argument just changes and it expands. So now we have 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 teams that all feel like they have a legitimate argument for that bubble spot. And maybe they're right. But I can tell you this, I know unequivocally their resumes are way worse than those resumes that we argued for at the 4 spot, right? So we're expanding the scope of the teams that we argue about, and their arguments become weaker. Well, that would happen in perpetuity as we were to expand. If we expand much further, we're just going to expand the pool of teams that feel like they should have access to that bubble spot with worse and worse and worse resumes until we're the NCAA basketball tournament and we're like, hey, is 72 enough?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So what's the fix? I think everyone understands that problem, possibly. But once you understand the problem, I don't love this idea in college football that we just complain. I want to just provide an answer. I think that the answer is changing the way that the playoff is created. I think that we need to define paths for the playoff. For example, I know automatic qualifiers are a buzzword, and they don't like that. But that is an access-based playoff, just like we have in every other sport. Every team, every fan base understands how they get into the dance. It's not just behind closed doors in a boardroom. And for instance, like let's just say, sake of argument, we had a 14-team playoff. Top 2 seeds got a bye. The SEC and the Big Ten had 4 automatic berths. The ACC and the Big 12 had 2 automatic berths, and we had 2 spots at the end for the Group of 5 champion and possibly a Notre Dame or another at large. Well, then what we could have this weekend, guys, is a play-in weekend where we're not having to argue in a boardroom. Steve Sarkisian doesn't have to sit behind a podium and yell and scream about his resume, but they could go play. You would have something like Iowa, Oregon, Michigan, USC. You'd have Oklahoma at Ole Miss, Texas at Texas A&M, Utah at BYU, Miami at Duke. Winner of those games go. Well, now they at least have control, and we're not just yelling and screaming about resume. You're expanding the playoff by just in defining the path for how to get into the playoff. So again, to me, it's about the selection-based model versus a defined path / access-based model. Expansion is not the answer. It's just not, because we'll just continue to have these debates over worse and worse and larger pools of teams.
Joel Klatt is with us, college football on Fox. He's on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline. By the way, before we get too far from Ohio State, Michigan, I don't know why we have review if you watch that first touchdown and don't rule it a touchback. I mean, what are we doing here?
That was bizarre.
As clear
and then
as it
even
gets.
their explanation, we don't have we didn't have the camera angles that the TV crew had.
What?
Lie.
Why do you
that
not?
was a lie.
Well,
they have every camera angle that we have.
Yeah,
I don't understand what the.
Y'all had the only angle we needed, the one that showed his foot on the sideline. I mean, that's all we needed.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah. And I think they were trying to make the argument that, we didn't know if he crossed the plane with control or not before he lost control. And I was like, that was like 2 yards prior to the goal line.
Yeah, anyway.
Anyways, I thought that. Now, that being said, I will say this. I think that was the wrong call, and it was a controversial call. I don't know if it changes the outcome of that game. Maybe it's a little different, but boy, after the first 5 minutes of game time, that was a as dominant a performance as I think we've seen all season long. That was thorough.
Yeah. But to the Iron Bowl, and I presume you were in place to watch that one. Mm-hmm. The 4th down call on 4th and 2, I have found I'm in the minority. As soon as it was 2nd and 2, I thought this is 4-down territory because it's who Kalen DeBoer is. Oh, so you did too.
I did too, and I'm actually right along with you. I'm thinking back to 2023 in the Apple Cup, when he had a 4th down that was, to be honest with you, a more precarious situation than what he was in this game, and he went forward on his side of the 50. So for me, who Kalen is and the calls that he's made in the past, I thought it was 4-down territory the whole time. And they were able to execute and win the game. And I thought it would be a style of play similar to what he called. The guy is a bit of I don't want to say a gambler, but he's willing to take a risk for a high reward, and they were certainly able to do that. I thought that was a really good win for Alabama. And what I like about Alabama is that over the back half of the year, guys, I feel like their defense has improved vastly from what we saw maybe early in the season or certainly last year. And that's encouraging. It's very encouraging because you got to have good defense to win in the playoffs. I think what is alarming is that this elite passing game that we thought, was indestructible and could be there every single week has at times fallen off and found a lack of rhythm. And I think that's the concerning part about Alabama.
From Brian Harsin to Hugh Freeze, the offense just hasn't worked. Now you bring in Alex Golesh. And this is a guy that, learned under Matt Campbell, learned under Josh Heupel, had the number 5 total offense in college football this year, 4th in scoring, over 42 points per game. I don't know how well you know Golesh. And just overall, how do you think the fit is, and what do you think about the hire?
Prior success is indicative of future results. And here's what of all the things about like his background as an offensive coach, let me tell you what I like most about Alex Golesh. Is that he took over a program that was 4-29 in their previous 3 years, and now they're 9-3. That tells me that he understands how to build something as a head coach. And so that is more important in my estimation than it is what offense he's going to run or what the statistics were when he was an offensive coordinator at Tennessee and so on and so forth, or even the offensive numbers for South Florida. He gets it, how to build a program, how to build a winner, how to build a locker room. And so from that standpoint, I like this hire. Guys, I've told you all year that I think Alex Golesh is a really good coach. At the same time, I think that you would be correct in pointing out that I've been critical of the Heupel offense at Tennessee in its nature and its lack of ability to win a conference championship or at the top level. I think that both of those things can be true. I would hope that because of his background, he's not a purist in terms of the deep choice offense. If that's the case, that's not what Matt Campbell is about. So, like, he's got history where he's deeper than that from a schematic standpoint. I think USF, South Florida, was deeper schematically than even Tennessee. And there are limitations from a player perspective at South Florida that you don't have at Tennessee. But I'm one of the guys that I would say this is a really good hire. I think that this is a guy that can win at Auburn. I really do. And my hope is that they just give him that opportunity. Unfortunately, in the SEC, it does just mean more. But that also means that 15 out of the 16 think that they should win the SEC every year. Well, with that, you get quick triggers. And I'm hoping that he's got enough time to build the requisite roster and locker room to go and win.
Yeah, and a nice hiring spree from AAA American Conference with their coaches. They just brought them all up yesterday. I mean, yeah.
Well, it was a thin pool of coaches to choose from this year. We all know that.
Yeah.
Listen, the reason that we had a Lane Kiffin saga is because everyone else took their hand down. He's not in the top 4 coaches in the country or 5 coaches in the country that you would target if you were just making a list, pure list. You would call Kirby Smart. You would call Ryan Day. You would call Dan Lanning. You would call Marcus Freeman. You'd probably call Steve Sarkisian, Like, Lane's the only one that just kept his hand up. You'd call Kurt Signetti. And Lane was like, well, I'll be the one that leaves the playoff team. The others weren't willing to do that. That's why we had a Lane Kiffin saga. Not that he's not going to be good. I think that he could be really good at LSU. And if they're going to invest to the level that they feel like, or I hear that they're going to invest in the roster, then they should be very good. But he's still a coach that hasn't won a conference championship. He's never gone to the playoff. So this idea that he was some sort of prize, I felt like was somewhat funny because he's not in the top few names that you would call. He was a big fish in a small pond and took advantage of it.
I'm interested because I know the calendar's messed up, but the calendar is what the calendar is. Do you have a problem with Keith Carter not letting him coach the playoffs?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that I would have done the same thing if I was Ole Miss. Like, of course. What, no one would be looking out for the program. They would be in purgatory if Lane Kiffin was sitting there. He'd be focusing on the games and not anything about the future of the program. The unfortunate part is that Ole Miss has to think about the future of their program. Lane's thinking about the future of his career, and no one's thinking about the immediacy of the playoff for the players. And the players tend to view things through a straw. Their focus is very narrow. This is all they got. This is their opportunity to do something really special for the rest of their lives, and then it's going to be over. And so while everybody else is looking out for the future of their entity, whether it's a career or the program, no one's thinking about the immediacy of the players. Now, you can make an argument like, well, Lane was trying to do that. Well, no. This idea that this is Ole Miss's fault, that Lane decided to make a selfish decision, which is his prerogative. I'm not knocking it, by the way. Like, he can make that decision. Doesn't mean there's not consequences, and it doesn't mean it's not selfish. But, like, you can't all of a sudden then be like, they won't let me coach. It's like, I can't leave my family right before Christmas and be like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with the neighbor lady. But I'd like to spend Christmas with you guys. My wife would be like,
the old neighbor lady.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So LSU's the neighbor lady.
Yeah.
She's hot. She's hot, I'm telling you.
Now, is the neighbor lady a hoe or a housewife?
I'm not going to get into that.
If LSU's the neighbor lady, she's hot but crazy. Hot but crazy.
100%.
Yeah.
This is like, it's like that scale. It's generally right in line.
That's right.
And
yes.
the house is in order at Ole Miss. Right now, you come home, clothes are cleaned. It's pretty clean. Meals are decent. Like everything's fine.
She looks good in a one piece.
That's right.
Yeah. One piece, sensational. Yeah. Everything's good. Yeah. Everything is good.
Yeah.
Does she wear lingerie? No. But everything is fine.
Yeah. She looks fine in my favorite band's t-shirt.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. When it goes always wears socks in bed because her feet gets cold.
Neighbor lady kid does.
It's I can't remember the guys. Flight of the Conchords used to have that song that it was like, team building shirt, exercise 99 or so. You don't know what you're doing to me. Like, she wears business socks. That's great. But you know what you're getting. Now, you're about to go into the just crazy, just the crazy. But she wears the two-piece.
Yeah, she's hot.
All right.
All right.
She's hot, but she's crazy.
Yeah. Can I ask you about your reporting? Do you know anything about Penn State, what they're doing in their searching with your contacts in their search right now?
No. And that's the one that's just like flying under the radar. And candidly, it's like, I'm sorry, what are you doing? You've had longer than anybody. And I have a sense that it's gone off the rails a couple of times. I feel like they made the move, honestly, thinking we're absolutely going to get Curt Cignetti. I believe that's why they made the move when they did. It's because they thought for sure they would be able to grab Curt Cignetti. That didn't happen. Matt Rule was always kind of a backup because of the relationship Pat Kraft, the athletic director, has with Matt Rule back to their Temple days. That goes away. And then all of a sudden they hire a search firm. So they didn't hire a search firm right away. I don't know if you guys know this, but then all of a sudden midway through the search, a search firm is involved. And then you start talking about all these names, and now a bunch of the names that I've heard are being hired. And at this point, I would assume that Brian Daboll is going to be the guy, but why haven't they done that yet? I mean, their season's over, so why haven't we seen it? I don't know. That's strange. And I guess to answer your question, I don't have any further information on that.
Yeah, I brought up Auburn has been offensively starved the last few years. Even worse has been Kentucky. Mark Stoops out. Will Stein, I'm a big fan. I think you are too. 36 years old. He's never done it before, so there's a lot of unknowns. But Will Stein to Kentucky, what would that do for Kentucky fans?
I'd rather have Brian Hartline.
Wow.
If you're going to go coordinator, I would go with a guy that's a proven recruiter. If I was Penn State, I'd hire Brian Hartline because that's the best way to hurt your biggest competition in your conference. Will's a good coach. I think he needs another year or two. He's a young coach. He will be a quality head coach. I just am going to pose this. You guys might think I'm crazy. Do you want Kentucky if you're Will Stein? I would say no.
Yeah.
I think being the coordinator at Oregon is better than being the head coach at Kentucky. Now, some people will probably scream and yell and kick and say I'm crazy, but I believe that to be true.
But the thing I would say on that, if I'm trying to sell him on the job, back to Curt Cignetti. If you can do it at Indiana, Why can't you do it at Kentucky?
Sure. No, that's a great point. My question back would be, where's the money? Show me the donors, because that's going to take a supreme investment. In order to do that at a Texas Tech or an Indiana, you've got to have the resources, which those schools have gone out and gotten. You know, Cody Campbell at Texas Tech infuses a bunch of money, and look at their roster. So that's great, and I don't disagree with that. It would just be like, you know, we're going Jerry Maguire here. Show me the money.
Well, the other one that I was getting real quick, Brown, Brown's got to play off, but I'll end it on one more coach. I know you're a fan of Jonathan Smith. It didn't work out at Michigan State. I thought it was going to be a good fit. I still think Jonathan Smith can be a hell of a coach. What do you think the future is for Michigan State? Would you go Brian Kelly or would you go Pat Fitzgerald if you're Michigan State? And then ultimately, what do you think Jonathan Smith does?
I would go Pat Fitzgerald. It won't surprise me if Jonathan Smith decides, you know what, like maybe I'll go coordinate for a year. But if he doesn't want to do that, there's going to be jobs that I think he could take and excel with. I don't believe UCLA has done anything officially. Jonathan Smith, I think, would work.
UCLA has now.
Well,
real quick, UCLA has, as we're talking, news is breaking that they have hired James Madison's Bob Chesney, who some thought was the lead dog for the Penn State job.
Wow.
And he's taking the UCLA job. That is mind-blowing.
Why would Bob Chesney take that job?
I do not know, Klatt, but that is multiple reports now from On3, CBS, several people reporting that now.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think.
Damn, he could have had Penn State.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people have said.
Yeah, so Penn State's probably, we just haven't heard the news yet. You know, Penn State's got to be done.
They got somebody.
He's going to UCLA.
Yeah, they got somebody.
They've got somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe the fact that it's this quiet for this long, maybe it is Heartline.
Yeah, maybe.
You know, with a championship game. Oh man, that's interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so UCLA is locked up. Jonathan Smith should coach somewhere. I don't know where it is. I think he's a really good coach. To be honest, I don't quite understand why it didn't work out. I would hire Pat Fitzgerald over Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, I think, did a lot of damage to his reputation and credibility, you know, with his stint at LSU. Unfortunately, and it doesn't look good for Brian that Notre Dame is better that he left. It's, you know, eerily similar to Dan Hawkins leaving Boise State and Chris Peterson takes them to another level. You know, like that's not a great look for Brian, and in particular with the way everything happened and played out at LSU.
Klatt, before you go, the college football playoff rankings will be announced tomorrow. The SEC's message has been very clear. They consider Alabama, because of the tiebreakers, the regular season champion. They point out numerous times they are the number one seed in the SEC championship game. I understand why they are doing this. Is it your belief that being in the championship game is enough for Alabama to be locked into this field?
I hope so. I hope so, because I don't think that they should be penalized for playing this game. Now, as we're seeing in real time conference championships die, right? And so that's why different formats are going to have to be implemented. There's no doubt. But this is the right argument from the SEC, and they are correct. I do not believe that Alabama should lose their spot in the playoff for having to go and play the conference championship game. I really don't. Now, to be quite honest with you, I think the team that has the weakest resume, and I know that sounds crazy and you guys are going to scoff at me, is OU. You know, if you look at the predictive measures, the Sagarin ratings, the S&P Plus, like they don't like OU. And that OU team, if you're just watching the film and you're doing this off of eye test, I mean, OU is the worst of all of those teams. You can get all the way to Miami, and it's like if any of those teams play OU this week, I think those teams win the game. Look at how many yards Alabama had in that game. I mean, they outgained them by, 200 yards almost or more. So I know that they won that game, but a lot of it was turnovers. That offense is so poor. So watch out for OU, where they go. If Notre Dame passes them, maybe we're set up for that. Where does Texas go? And then BYU, we've never seen a Power 4 team 11-1 ranked outside of the top 10 until right now. And I know, those in your neck of the woods would just scoff at the Big 12, but that is the case.
All right, we're going to do something we don't normally do. We do 4 downs on this show every day. We're going to do it with Klatt. All right?
If it's okay with Joel.
Is that okay with you, Joel? Do you have anywhere to be?
Sure.
5 minutes? Does it have a sponsor?
I got 5 minutes.
Do we need to do a sponsor?
It is brought to you today by our wonderful friends at Alabama Power.
Oh, Alabama Power, Klatt. Now,
nice.
California Power.
I love it.
California Power. I don't know what that's like, but I know what Alabama Power is like.
It ain't good.
Alabama Power is. Not only do they keep the lights on, they make sure you're not paying more than you should pay. So you can download some of their tools like the free My Power usage tool. It helps you track how much energy you're using and when. Great way to spot patterns and avoid surprises. Alabama Power offering easy tips to help you save. AlabamaPower.com/MyPowerUsage to learn how to manage your usage and keep cost in check.
First down.
Better chance of getting left out of this college football playoff, a 2-loss Texas Tech team or a 3-loss Alabama?
Say it again. I'm sorry. I was just texting somebody.
Better chance of getting left out of this college football playoff. 2-loss Texas Tech or 3-loss Alabama?
3-loss Alabama. I think Tech is in. Because they will already have a win over the team that beat them.
Yeah.
So Tech is in.
Yeah. Alabama would, too, already have the win over Georgia, but the Florida State
That's a
loss
good point.
becomes a big play at that point. And I would say both are in. But if one of them had to be out, it would be Alabama.
I'm with Jim on this one. Both get in, but if they gunned ahead, they had to throw somebody out. It's probably Alabama over Texas Tech. It's crazy.
And there's 5 spots in between them, guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a big jump.
That's a lot of ground to have to drop back if you're Tech.
Second down.
What happens first? Ole Miss wins 10 games again or LSU wins a playoff game under Lane Kiffin?
LSU wins a playoff game under Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. I like Pete Golding a lot. The question is, can you keep up the personnel that Lane has been able to bring in through the portal? High school recruiting has fallen, it's not in the conversation with Ole Miss compared to other SEC teams. Recruiting through the portal has been why Ole Miss has gotten this good. Can Pete Golding and the NIL at Ole Miss keep it going to that level? I think you can do it at LSU. We'll see if they can do it at Ole Miss.
It's easier to answer this question if you tell me Pete Golding hires who as offensive coordinator. I mean, that's the thing on him. He's got to go get a dynamic offensive coordinator and sell
That's
him.
right. Because if you're a quarterback or a guy in the transfer portal or at a high school, why do you go play for a defensive head coach?
That's right. Yeah, and sell them on, I'm going to let you be Lane Kiffin. You run whatever you want. I'm going to be over here coaching defense.
Yeah.
So I got to know that, but my bet would be LSU wins a playoff game first.
Third down.
Who gets to a college football playoff first? Sharon Moore at Michigan or John Sumrall at Florida?
Oh, Sharon. They will likely go next year. 6 freshmen starting on offense on Saturday. 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line. A true freshman at quarterback, a true freshman at wide receiver. They were young in the defensive secondary. And that talent, if they're able to keep it in the transfer portal, obviously, in this new era, they're right there. They were 9-3. They're basically a game away from going. Florida has light years to make up. So that's not even close. Sharon will go way before Florida.
Do you believe there's a offensive coordinator change? Or is that Chip Lindsey calling Sharon Moore's playbook? Because that doesn't look like I've known Chip a long time.
It's tough to make a change after they improved by like 80 spots. Like they were the 5th most improved offense in all of college football this year. I think that they need a better quarterback-specific coach. And so I think it's more of an analyst or someone that can come in and just work with Bryce Underwood. I don't think it's an offensive scheme or Chip Lindsey issue.
Fourth.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Fourth down.
The late Richard Pryor would have been 85 years old today. Best comedian of all time.
Oh, wow. All right, am I first?
Yeah, go ahead. You bet lead
Well,
off. on
I'll
this
go
one.
first.
All right.
I think it is Richard Pryor. I think Richard Pryor changed the way you do stand-up comedy for the world. And Eddie Murphy was right there with him. George Carlin was different, different brainwave, but Richard Pryor talked about some uncomfortable subjects and made it very humorous. So I'd go Richard Pryor is the GOAT.
And Eddie Murphy just tapped out way too early. If you've seen the documentary on Netflix, he gives a ton of credit to really his mentor and guy he looked up to in Richard Pryor, but Eddie Murphy just decided not to do stand-up anymore.
Could I argue Seinfeld has been the most successful? I don't think he's the best, but
I think only in the TV
well, that's what
realm.
I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, what he made off that
Oh,
that show is
killed it.
incredible. Yeah,
But I think you could go Dick Van Dyke and some of those like that. But I guess they didn't do
not to
stand
that
up.
level. Yeah.
I know this sounds crazy, but I'm a little young for Richard Pryor. So what influenced me the most, or what I first got, as a kid, was Eddie Murphy Raw, Eddie Murphy Delirious, and those were like my introduction to stand-up comedy, and those were incredible. Then you start to watch some Pryor or Carlin or this, and so for me it's Eddie Murphy. But I will tell you this: to be as successful, funny, and clean as he is, Nate Bargatze is
Hilarious.
pretty outstanding and hilarious, and in particular with a style that I would say is unique. I took my son to go see him in Boston, and I think that he's going to do a couple of more. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see him on like a stadium tour, not even an arena tour.
I mean, I went to see him at the arena downtown last summer, and he sold it out for two shows that day.
Yeah, Boston Garden. I flew out to Boston with my oldest son. He sold out the Boston Garden 3 times in a weekend.
It's incredible, and he's back this summer at the same arena, and the cheapest ticket I think is like $250 to go see a stand-up comedian in a place that holds, what's that hold down there, 18,000?
Lance is so upset right now.
Yeah, he doesn't like
Look at him.
Bargatze.
He does
Bargatze's
not like
hilarious.
Why? Why am I upset?
Are you?
No.
Do you like
he doesn't
Bargatze?
say the F
You're on
word.
video.
No,
You're
I
on
think
video.
no, I think it is so impressive to be able to do it as clean as he does it. I mean, that is really, really difficult.
He's a very funny guy. I love him. I'm not going to say he's the most successful of all time. I'm with Klatt. I came along at the time where I was watching Raw and Delirious, and it was made funnier by the fact that I'm like, my parents would definitely not want me watching this.
And he had leather
That's right.
suits on.
And he had leather suits on, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I played baseball, Klatt, before we had wireless earbuds and all that. So we would turn up Richard Pryor while we'd do those long batting cage sessions and just laugh.
Oh, that's hilarious.
While we were taking batting, bing, and you'd hear the punchline, bing.
All right, that is 4 downs, and that is Joel Klatt. Klatt, thank you very much for the time. We'll see you next Monday when we're talking about
You got it.
championship weekend. Have a great enjoy the game. That's a huge deal. 1 versus 2.
can't wait.
Yeah, excited for you.
Thanks, fellas.
All right,
Have
buddy.
a good day.
We'll see you, Klatt, with us on the Alexander Chenard Trial Attorneys Hotline.